We agreed that we will continue to our close cooperation to get people out as efficiently and safely as possible. We are currently on a pace to finish by August the 31st. The sooner we can finish, the better.
Earlier, President Biden said this August 31st deadline is dependent on cooperation from the Taliban. But the Taliban says the U.S. will face consequences if it delays its original exit date. Despite those threats, there are mounting calls to extend the mission to ensure all Americans and Afghan allies are evacuated. Dan Lamothe reported on this for the Washington Post. He covers the Pentagon and the U.S. military. Dan, good to see you again. So remind us of the kind of pressure the Biden administration has been under to extend that withdrawal deadline.
It's significant. It's bipartisan. It's veterans groups. There is a large concern here that many thousands of Afghans in particular simply won't make the cutoff. The president has alluded to basically completing the operation, will be able to complete the operation. I think a key question for a lot of people remains, how do you define that operation? Who qualifies, who counts, and who simply gets left behind?
So what is the message that this new announcement from the president is sending to the Taliban?
The president keeps asking for cooperation. The Taliban has, to some degree, allowed Americans to get to the airport unimpeded. There have been reports of beatings and things of that sort, but it sounds like most often they allow Americans through to get to the airport. Where we're running into trouble is these Afghans, some of which have the paperwork they need, have approval, or at least close to getting approval. They are not having the same level of cooperation from the Taliban. And the Taliban has said in the last day or so that if you're an Afghan, you should stay. And they are encouraging the U.S. government to also encourage these Afghans to stay, even the ones who have worked for the U.S. military for years.
So with all that in mind, then, Dan, give us a sense, who is actually being allowed on these evacuation flights?
I think it is varied to a large degree. It's a grab bag. There are American citizens. There are Afghans with these special immigrant visas who have made it through. There are other categories of people, journalists, senior Afghan officials in the old government, female leaders of sorts that have various concerns about their security for very good reasons. We've heard, anecdotally of individual people like that making it on, but we're also hearing lots of stories of people with the right paperwork getting to the gate and simply being told they cannot enter either by the U.S. military or by the Taliban, in that, checkpoint area before you get to the airport. In some cases, they're being told no in both cases. It's a complex and a very inconsistent situation.
Yeah, inconsistent seems to be the word. I mean, at this point, Dan, are there concrete numbers? Do we know how many Americans have actually been evacuated so far?
The number of Americans is upwards of 4,000. What we don't necessarily have a good read on is 4,000 out of how many. There was an early estimate last week that there was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000, maybe even 15,000 Americans that were in Afghanistan when the government in Kabul fell. We don't know if they still believe that is the denominator on that equation. So we're left with a situation where, are there 5,000 they need to get? Are there 10,000 they need to get? Did some of these folks find alternative means, drive out to Pakistan, some other way to get out? And they're having conversations. They're in touch with some of these individuals. We had reporting last night that U.S. Special Operations troops have, at least on occasion, now made flights out of Kabul to pick up people in other parts of the country. So lots of things going on all at once here.
Dan, a moment ago, you touched on this when you talked about inconsistencies, about, who's being allowed in at the gates outside the airport there. And you asked about this during the Pentagon briefing. I'm wondering, Dan, what specifically have you been hearing from those people who are trying to help those various allies, for instance, get out of Afghanistan? I know there are a number of groups that are working toward that effort.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, a lot of those groups are being very careful about the specifics of how they're trying to help. But in generalities, It's often an effort to speak to somebody inside the base. It's an effort to try and make sure that somebody's in the right time and place at the right gate to get through the crowd in the right location. Which gates are open, which gates closed, that changes often it's seemingly at random from the outside. So really, they're just trying to make sure that the information is up to date and that some of these Afghans, that in a lot of cases, these are veterans helping people that they served with in combat years ago and think a lot of. So there's a very personal connection for a lot of people involved here.
And Dan, I'm wondering, what kind of response did you get from Pentagon officials when you asked about these inconsistencies in who was being allowed in at the gates?
I think the answer, I didn't find the answer fully satisfying, would probably be a good way to put it. It sounded to me like they're acknowledging that it's a complex situation. They're acknowledging that it's not always working perfectly. But the way it's sounding from the field and the way it sounds from Washington isn't quite necessarily squaring up evenly here.
Right, and that is such an important point, even as we hear President Biden and White House officials talk about the situation, to keep in mind the reality on the ground, as you and others have reported. Dan Lamothe for us. Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you.